Okay, my name is Sarah Harris. This is eJournal 768B, and today we're going to be talking about kind of our processes to promote collaboration, problem solving with stakeholder groups, and what steps we have taken. I think per our conversation today, I'd like to start more at a district level as opposed to a local level. And why I'd like to start discussing the district level is I think the district has shifted dramatically into having more conversations that start with reflection and start with staying centered. I think especially during this year where we had a pandemic and really all of our schools were rocked because of the pandemic, it was really important that the district leadership and especially the administration was able to kind of stay status quo. And at times that was really hard. So within those district meetings, what we decided to do inevitably is when we return to our sites, we really drew it back to the compass. The compass has 4 quadrants: thinking, feeling, acting, and believing. And when we started every conversation with whichever stakeholder group we were dealing with in that moment, we always used the terminology of staying centered. It is okay wherever you entered that conversation. If you were in the thinking quadrant, if you were in the acting quadrant or the believing quadrant, it really didn't matter. But we placed an emphasis on, okay, let's take a couple of minutes, see where you are on that compass, and then see how we can move forward from that. So if that was independently kind of thinking, maybe doing a little brainstorm write out, speaking to a colleague, speaking to a confidant and a friend, we always started there. Then where we really shifted gears and what we have done consistently at Miramani is regrounding in our purpose. And I think one of the best quotes I ever saw, just in a simplistic sense, is our purpose is a focused intention and engagement on our shared goal. One of the strongest shared goals we had this year at a district and local level was around our equity work. And each of our meetings that we had, if it be discussing what our new classrooms are going to look like, or what type of lessons you have to do now on Canvas, or how you're going to now have an iPad where you have to zoom in your students who are at home and then have them see the people in your classrooms. You can imagine we always were very prescriptive in our meetings to draw it back to what is our purpose? What is our goal? I was able to do this firsthand with our Course Select leaders, which was a series of leaders from different subject areas around campus. And where I really started with them was more or less 2 years ago. Where I have gone with them this year is I've been provided the opportunity to talk to more people. I've talked at a district level about curriculum shifts here at Miramani. We've had equity parent meetings where I've been able to kind of show, here is our action planning model. Here are our equity goals. Here's what teachers have changed. Now, suffice it to say, changes inevitably still need to happen, but I think we've made tremendous growth, and I think we've come a long way in the way we look at curriculum and how our collaboration process has honed in so much on how are our students learning and how are we making sure they learn. At the beginning of the year and then in the second half of the year when we had our webinars, I was able to kind of show parents, okay, here's the way a lesson was presented. Here's an equity SMART goal that a teacher created. Here's how they assess students. Here's what they did if a student didn't learn. So they can kind of see the process working around this umbrella of equity, which I think is really important and really where the district is inevitably going. The second question here is, what steps have you taken or will you take to develop greater public understanding? I think it's really important to have full transparency and be open to feedback. I think if anything, distance learning has taught us is just this constant need to hear from students and parents. I know that can be difficult, and I know that sometimes opens the door for differentiation or, in a sense, criticism, but I think that is inevitably what makes the school go full circle, and I think that's what makes the school grow. And really where you take that feedback is to your staff. And to your school site, and like what's tangibly happening and what teachers think about it and what teachers think we should do. And that's where we get back again that cyclical cycle of our action planning model. what is going into the work? How can we show this? You know, I am a true believer in showing the work and not just talking about the work. So how inevitably can we show that this work is being done? How can we prove that this work is being done? And I hate to say, you know, we're being tested here, but kind of like the way we test kids, our stakeholders want to know, like, is this actually happening? What we've also done with stakeholders and staff is kind of take them through the process of really honing yourself and your why. Like, what is your purpose? Like, what are we inevitably here to do? And I think that helps create a better understanding too. Like, you need to really establish yourself if you're part of a parent organization, if you're a student organization, like, why are you here? Like, what is your ultimate purpose? And of course, as you know, an administrator and a leader, we have things that we want to see to fruition. We have things that we want to see carried out. But unless you get that quote unquote, the term is always buy-in, I say motivation and engagement. In order to get that sense of motivation and engagement, you have to know your why. Like, you have to ground yourself in what you believe in and what you want to see happen. And of course, there's going to be different passions and there's going to be different emotions with that. But I think if you really start with your staff after obtaining that feedback and really where you want to go next, I think that's an important component. Describe a personal goal for enhancing community participation in your school and district. I think the biggest thing that needs to change at Miramani is the overall sense and participation of our community members. I think oftentimes we bring them in on a need basis, and we give them a lot of choice of when they want to engage and when they want to step back. But I love to have some sort of just ongoing continuum of getting parents here, having different presentations about the curriculum at the forefront, doing different things around what we're doing with our curriculum. I think we have a lot of teachers on special assignments that can really embrace kind of curriculum changes. You know, the community came at us pretty hard a couple years ago about curriculum changes we should make. And I think inevitably the only way they're going to really see those curriculum changes is where we have opportunities for them to have conversations with us. And, you know, if a teacher is not comfortable in doing that, I think the administration can absolutely do that. But I think it needs to be in a way that's relatively scheduled and there's an agenda, and we're keeping it in the frame the same way we do with our teachers when we're presenting maybe something that's new or something that's relatively uncomfortable. Is we're giving them a forum and opportunity to provide feedback, but then we're continuing. Like, we have to be action oriented. We have to be, okay, the beginning, the middle, and the end. We can't be stifled in that middle part where we're just kind of back and forth, because we draw it back to what are our district goals? What does our district inevitably want to see? And we might not get there full throttle, and it might not be fully successful, but what are the steps that we're taking in order to get there? I think is an immensely important piece of this, and why we do so much front loading and training, why I kind of created the action planning model with my course select leads, why we use the compass and kind of draw from the compass, and why we have had the ability to kind of always draw it back. What is our purpose? Why are we here today? One of the things that I actually have struggled with that I think needs to stay in the back of my mind, especially if I potentially shift into a leadership position at some point in my career, is to always have meetings with purpose. You can allow forums for people to provide feedback, especially in your stakeholder groups. But again, what is your purpose? What is the point of having this meeting? What is the point of having this webinar? And I think that is the biggest and most important kind of gap sometimes, is we kind of get lost in the weeds and then we forget our purpose. Why are we educators? You know, we're parents actively involved in the school. Why are we actually involved in the school? Like, what do we want to see happen? And then what I've really learned is trusting in my district and trusting in the decisions of the district. But I think a school cannot function without all of its stakeholders, and its stakeholders playing an active part in the process and having a mindfulness of like what the process actually is.